This is The Naked Life with Roxanne Noor. Hello, my dears. Today I am here with Floki Chokte. Floki is a really interesting man because he's someone who has been really involved in the material world, the world of physical form and matter and money and success. And he worked in technology. And 12 years ago, he gave it all up for spiritual practice. So living with Buddhist monks, studying Buddhism, studying Taoism in Southeast Asia, and then creating a really beautiful practice called Inner Walk, which has helped thousands of people here on the island where I live in Thailand. So this Inner Walk is basically a walking meditation practice of allowing and noticing the contents of the mind. And Floki is really someone who everyone here in this community goes to for support. He's someone who, like I said, was involved in this physical realm and is really involved also in the spiritual. And he is just such a joy to be around and has this real lightness of being. A lot of spiritual teachers have a beautiful way of articulating themselves, but they don't embody the content of what they speak about. And Floki is quite different because he really is this embodiment of lightness and generosity and giving back and basically all the spiritual principles that I see as the most real, he really has within him. So today's conversation is with Floki, who I admire dearly, and about the technologies of the mind. If the hardware of the mind is our thoughts, how can we update the hardware? If reality is all a game, how can we play it to the most intelligent point of our abilities? So let's see. Hello.
Hello.
So I was thinking that we are humans who have this incredible capacity to think, to dream, to imagine, to speculate, to analyze. We have something like 70,000 thoughts a day. And when I look at the nature of my own mind, so many of the thoughts are exactly the same. They're cycling, they're looping, and overall, it doesn't bring me so much pleasure, but I know that this mind has tremendous capacity. And so today I wanted to talk to you about the technologies of the mind, how we can harness certain things from actually the body-mind complex to make our lives more rich, more fascinating, and so that we can actually learn to accept, but also know how to refine different sources from the mind. And one of the main ones I learned from you and your practice of Inner Walk was the importance of stillness in a way and silence. More of this thing of actually silence because you're walking and you're allowing, but this thing of being in a state where you don't have so much external output and this access actually to the state of boredom in a way and watching the nature of the own mind. What do you feel is the importance of silence or even stillness and how it relates to the quality of our minds?
Okay, so you said few things and I will break them just to pieces so we kind of all speak the same language.
Yes.
Yeah. So the first thing that is interesting, you use the word silent. And so what comes a lot when we use the word silent is an effort to make silent. And this is not silent. So just that we can all understand where we are going to, because it seems like sometimes we say, I want to go somewhere, but we all mean a different place. Or we create a different idea about this place. So first of all is how we can land in a space of silence without trying to make it silent. Because trying to make it silence is a lot of noise, a lot of self-judgment, a lot of self-criticism will just induce more noise. And that's one thing. And another space of silence that we don't want to be in, or we can be in, but it's not actually the purpose of this, is that I have a lot of noise all the day, and then I go to do something for 1 hour who give me silence during the time that I do it. But as soon as I finish doing it, I come back to the noise. So it's like, I'm really going to have silent now, and I'm keeping it for 1 hour. And then as soon as I'm releasing the control of the silence, again, the noise is there. So like, what's the point in that? It's like, okay, you gained 1 hour of silence. I think it's amazing. I think it's beautiful. But you actually want to have some little bit more harmony during the day, not just for that moment. And so understanding that one is one interesting point, like what is really this will provide us the true silence. And I think this is where we are trying to go to. Now, if we try to understand, our mind is constantly doing something. And I think once we start to understand the technology of what he's doing, like why he's doing all of those things, and how to enable him to actually do it in a beneficial way, will actually maybe at some point will lead to a place of silence. So if I try to look at your mind, and let's say I put a monitor like a camera, and I'm like recording every single thing that he's doing, and I'm watching you 24/7 all your life, and like, so I will end up understanding something along the concept of you walk around this life, and for some reason you collect concepts that you become to believe that there are problems that you need to solve. Your shirt is not nice. I don't want you to sit next to me. Oh, they don't love me. You don't get a good grade in school, and you come back home and your parents look at you with this face. Or you're actually having a different experience. You come back from school and you get a good grade, and your parents cheers for you and clap for you. And then the next day, you're terrified not to get a good grade because your parents will not cheer for you. So you see, you walk around this planet, and you start to collect ideas of problems, basically, as so-called things that I need to solve. I'm not being loved, people don't like my shirt, and basically you start to create a list of all of those things. And this is, you can call for this conversation, let's call it your emotional memory. So there is things that happened to you in the past, and there is some tension there, some emotion is embodied in this concept, in this topic. So your mind is basically searching this list, let's call it the database, this list, and is looking for ideas how to solve all of those things. So you end up waking up in the morning and standing 1 hour in front of the mirror choosing a shirt, because your mind believes it's very important. It's like people will not like you, you will not be appreciated if you don't wear a certain type of clothing or whatever it is. And that's, of course, it's a simple one, but you go inside the room and there is people there, and you're like all over the room searching what's going on. Where should I sit? How should I speak? What is the body language of everyone? Do you appreciate that I came in? Maybe they don't like me. And like, so much tension. And that's basically the stories that we carry of our past, and our mind is basically trying to figure out what is the best way to solve this problem. So first of all, understanding that silence will never come as long as you believe that there is a problem. It's like, because that's what your mind is doing. It's trying to solve a problem. So first of all, I think just acknowledging this for a moment can be very powerful and life-changing. Just understanding that the mind is an amazing tool, very creative, by the way, with a lot of motivation to solve everything that you believe is a problem. So at that point, people ask me, what do I do with this? Yeah? There is few approaches to touch it. I will give few concepts. All of them can be life-changing just to understand them, but I will try to also make it practical. So the first thing is understanding that basically every problem have two solutions. One is practically solve the problem. So for example, please tomorrow 10 in the morning, send me a message, just say good morning. So automatically, from today until the rest of the day, until tomorrow 10 in the morning, you're going to keep thinking, what's the time? Is it 10 o'clock? I have to send Floki a message, blah, blah, blah. And before you go to sleep, you'll think about it. And when you wake up in the morning, you'll think about it. And you look at the clock about 20 times before 10 until it's 10 that you need to send me a message. So a practical solution for this is just put a reminder. Yes. And you put a reminder and that's it. It's like you don't have to think about it. And the reason that you don't have to think about it is because your mind is trusting the calendar that will tell you to do it, so you don't need to worry about it. Because what's really happening is that you are afraid to forget. So it's kind of like, by me telling you send me a message at 10 in the morning, I basically embodied a problem inside your head. So this is like what we call the practical solutions that we find to life. By the way, this practical solution is also tricky because you will see that even if you put a reminder, you'll do think about it a few times. And the reason is because you don't trust the calendar. So what is happening is your mind is basically saying, I don't trust the calendar, so I have to remind her that she still needs to do it. And so when you get used to use a calendar, this phenomena stops because now you build a trust relationship with the calendar. So you see, it's like your mind is like another entity here. It's basically checking, I don't trust the calendar. I have to remind her. Oh, I trust the calendar. She put it in the calendar. I don't have to remind her. And it's like, he's having all of those conversations inside when you don't see them.
So basically, I think in a way what you're saying is if we frame it the way you did with that it's a problem-solving machine in a way, then maybe the times that I have felt the most fragments of stillness, more quiet, has been in a way where I feel less internal defenses or where there's less importance in the external world. And I realized with even what you were saying, I used to have paranoia about not waking up on time and setting an alarm and having this weird fear that the alarm wouldn't go off because that had happened actually a couple times in my life. And I remember my body actually waking up every time 15 minutes before the alarm. And then I created almost a form of trust in myself. And then I just stopped using the alarm and just used the body mind. But for me, what you're saying about the fact that we want to solve problems is a lot of just the way we frame our reality and what we actually give importance and value to. And so much of the things that you just brought up, I feel the way choosing a shirt in the morning, all these things, I feel the way they're not super important or the way they've lost importance as I've gone through my life. And actually this thing of simplifying one's life, making less choices. The paradox of choice is so huge and enormous. Sometimes we feel crippled by it, but actually having more of this, the whole time you're talking, all I can think is how we don't need to protect or defend so much. There's not so many problems if we have a simplification process in our life. If we know what to focus on. And to me, it's almost like a refining process of the mind. Thoughts are happening no matter what. I think maybe the only choice we have is knowing which ones we can go into the whole thought web of, or which ones we can kind of just allow to brush to the side or just notice but not delve into.
Yeah, so as I said, there is two solutions for every problem. One is fix the problem, and the other one is understand it's not a problem.
Yes.
Okay, yes. So that's exactly what you're saying about the importance.
Yeah.
So actually, when you look at this, it's like why the mind is busy more with this and not with that is because he believes this is more important than that. So who decides what's important? So I'll tell you, you decide. You don't feel that you walk around and deciding this, but what is happening through your life, your mind is taking ownership on deciding what is important and what is not important based on your past experience. So this thing can be evolved and to a state that, I don't think things are that important, or most of the things are not really important, or something will say nothing is important, which I'm very careful to say this one, though that some people walk around this planet with the sensation of nothing is really important and they still put effort and devotion to make things happen, because when nothing is important it feels like there is no meaning to life. But I actually believe that if you start to understand it's not so important, it's an easy thing to connect to, it's not so important. So I think this is like one place to have the solution. I think there is a totally another direction to look at all of this topic, which I think will make some sense. So what is really interesting to look at our system, as I call it, the self-optimization process, which is, what is self-optimization process? It's like an automatic process that runs inside your system. It's like you don't have to do anything for this to happen. So that's the most important thing to know. In a way, I like to say, you can be as stupid as you like. It's not as require intellect, this process. It's not about how smart you are and how many years you study in school and so on. It's about if in order to optimize something, you need to have information. So it's like, if you do something and you don't look what you did, you look to the other side. Yeah, it's like, so I'm doing something and I look to the other side. So I don't know the result of what happened. I don't know what actually really happened. I'm just doing something. And because I don't look at it, I don't get the input of the result. So I don't get the input of the result, I cannot optimize it. So, okay, it makes sense. In order to optimize something, I need to collect information about what happened. Now, you hear stuff, so you collect information. You look at things, you collect information. But do you look inside your mind? Do you see your thoughts? Can you observe what your mind is doing? Do you see your subconscious? How many processes running in the background of your mind that you are not aware of? So think that if you don't see your subconscious, and let's say I can see my subconscious, I have more information to optimize. I can see what my mind is doing in the back. So one of the most interesting and important processes in order for optimizing the processes and improving quality of life and finding this stillness, peace that we're talking about, is being able to observe our mind, subconscious, and processes that's running inside of us. So not the information from the outside.
And it really is, as you're speaking, I feel that this witness or observer, whatever you'd want to call it, is the fact that the thoughts are running around and the witness is still and is pretty neutral. And how the thoughts kind of have preferences, judgments, but the witness is just like this figure of the mind that's just watching, and it allows for this process of self-examination. And I think the main thing that makes us suffer is the fact that we don't understand ourselves so much. And if we don't have that capacity to reflect and to actually notice trends in our behaviors, patterns, going to more of the root of things, then we're just constantly on autopilot, basically, and autopilot is running our lives. And the scary part of that is that we are easier to control, that there's less self-awareness, and the state of the observer, how crucial it is, but also how difficult, because it's a moment-to-moment thing. And I feel myself, and you talk about this in Inner Walk, this state of almost falling asleep in conscious reality and then waking back up when you're just noticing. And because we have this body-mind complex, in some way our senses are beautiful for allowing us into the moment again. Sometimes when I feel myself too in my mind, I'll just take a moment, feel the sun upon my skin, notice the sound of birds, noticing the external conditions around me, and then noticing the quality of my thoughts. And how I think in a lot of spiritual practices, there's this thing of neglecting the body. They're saying, like, you are not your body. And of course, we are way more than the bodies, but how the body and the mind is actually one organism, and it's in a feedback loop consistently.
Yeah, well, if you say I'm not my body, I'm also not my mind. Yeah, so it's like I'm either that or that. So if I'm giving a lot of value to my mind, I need to give a lot of value to my body. And I don't give value to my body, I don't give value to my mind. It goes one line. So you can go any way you want with this, to the right or to the left, but they are equal in the process. So they are one unit operated with different labels. One thing interesting to point is there is a big difference between me analyzing what goes inside of me to me observing what goes inside of me. And this brings a lot of confusions in the practices and a lot of in the teachings, because a lot of people think that they are self-aware, but actually they are self-analyzing. They are not necessarily self-aware. Self-aware is more of like a very simple process of just watching what's going on without labeling it or doing anything about it, trusting that there is an inner process greater than my intellect. I'm not talking about God process or this. It's a pure technology of the system. It's very grounded concept. And so I don't need to think what I'm thinking. I need to observe what I'm thinking, and the changes will come eventually, and they will actually come very quickly if I will do it in the right way, let's say, the observation. If I will think my processes, I will keep spiraling inside and creating more tension and more value and more importance. It's kind of like, oh, this topic is not important, so I'm going to think about it, how it's not important. No, if it's not important, you don't think about it. It's like you cannot be active about those things. You have to be very still and just observing. The other thing that you said about simplicity, I think this is a core fundamental thing. You know, sometimes I'm a student of the Book of Tao, and there is one line there that I will quote part of it. It says, I can teach you only three things: patience, compassion, and simplicity. Pointing to the fact that basically all the teachings that so-called exist, it's three things, and one of them is simplicity. And I think simplicity is one of the core elements of freedom. So a lot of people take simplicity today to, oh, I have only one house and one car and I don't buy 10 cars, or I don't buy 10 dresses. And so materialistic simplicity is very beautiful and is good. And of course, we don't need so many things and blah, blah. But we leave we leave the materialistic part of it, and we go into the information side. So we're becoming very complex in information. We know everything that is happening on the planet, who is fighting with who in which country, all the wars of the world, all the politicians, all the corruptions, all the conspiracy theories, all the medical industry problems. Like, we know so many things. So if we know so many things, our mind is doing something very simple. He believes that he needs to make an opinion about all the things that we know, because it's important. Otherwise, why should I know it? So it's like, you're very interested in what's happening now in, I don't know, in Uganda. Yeah, it's okay. So your mind believes if you're interested in this is important. So you start to have ideas about it, and then you think about it, and you have many things you're interested in. And because you're interested in so many things, your mind is doing just its job, trying to make opinions and think what's good, what's bad. And so you find yourself with a lot of information processing. So we say simplicity in thought and simplicity in action. Yeah, and stay very simple, because this is one of the key sources of silent. Other side of what I said now, which kind of provoking a lot of people, and this is where I like to touch it. I've been an activist in many fields in my life, and I find it a very interesting process for the mind, which I left kind of behind. But what I want to say is that knowing a lot of things and having a lot of opinions not necessarily help anyone. Okay? It helps you and your self-ego to think that you are caring about something. But knowing information and having an opinion does not really help anyone. And that's something that we need to acknowledge. So you do want to be active about what's happening in the planet. You do want to influence things in your reality, things that you care about. Be focused. Choose one thing, two things. Be focused on that. Give the attention to few things. Don't give attention to everything that is going on around. And so what is happening, you can be active in improving living on this planet or quality of life, not just of yourself and so on. But we get very scattered and we're all over the place and we're fighting a lot of wars. And then it's very challenging to live inside our life. So you can be simple and still be engaged and involved, but don't be all over the place, basically.
Yeah, I would agree. And because we are living in this information age that makes everything so accessible to us, in some way it brings about this, how you said, this knowledge, but also it's not very deep knowledge if we're reading a couple articles a day about things, but it gives us this feeling also of righteousness and that we think we know. And I also worked in a lot of social advocacy back in America, and one of the main problems I saw was the fact of righteousness polarizing, and the fact that you think you know, and which means you think you know better than someone, and you're making someone else the oppressor, and maybe in some way they are, but that's not the way that change really works. Maybe in the beginning, and I think anger can be used as a fuel, but at the end it actually needs to be dropped. And the other word you said outside of simplicity was compassion. And this thing of, it sounds so woo-woo, but really seeing ourselves and the other person, the way it's reflected back to us. And the strange part of the mind is the fact that I've noticed this a lot, even in my own family, when people get too intellectual, too cerebral, there can sometimes be a loss of the heart space. And this comes with the solidifying around our ideas and around our concepts of what is right. And I completely agree with you. When I've seen the best work that I've done in social justice, it's always been on the local level. It's always been what is actually directly in my reality and helping suffering that I feel my community is facing, because it's what I'm directly involved in. And of course, I want to know about what's going on in the world, but the degree to which I give my energy is usually to what is right in front of me, that I feel I can use my innate skills and my gifts to give to. And it's sad because the same way that information is given to us, it can deaden us and numb us. And I think what we see a lot in the culture is the state of apathy. We're given so much information and we don't know. It provides almost like a feeling of helplessness when you know everything that's going on every corner of the world. You're one limited person. There's this feeling of not wanting to do anything about it. And so I think when we speak about simplicity in social justice or advocacy, it really is on the local level. And this thing in when we give energy to so many things, it's going nowhere slowly. Whereas when we funnel all our eggs into one place, there's more depth, there's more understanding. And this is just a natural part of energy, is when you can direct it and when you can focus it, it just grows exponentially. And we're kind of taught in a way to be scatterbrained, to multitask, to be overstimulated. And really, to me, I would agree with you, this process of simplification isn't just matter, physicality, it's in our own minds, and it's a day-to-day practice of what we choose to consume. And so I have my own practices of not looking at my phone for the first hour I wake up. I will not be in a reactive state to what the rest of the world is telling me, not emails, not news, and just be in my own energy. And same with the end of the day, and creating these little rituals of this process of coming back to self in a world that is so adamant on actually, it's almost like a fight for consciousness. And it's really attention economy that we're living in, where utilizing your attention is what is profit engineering, is what is getting people to fight about certain things. And the more we can direct our own consciousness inward, and in a way, to me, the word that comes up is discerning. Be discerning about what I want to take in, because so much of it we have zero choice in. And we think that all of our thoughts are our own. Not really. Most of our thoughts are kind of what is given to us. And because you brought up the subconscious mind before, because our conscious minds would explode if we were actually intaking all the information. There has to be a storehouse, the subconscious, the unconscious, of all the things we're sitting on that we can't fully comprehend. And yeah, how actually delicate the fabric of the mind is, and how to really live our lives in a way that honors its delicacy and isn't overloading it and isn't in this all-consuming thing. Because in the end, yeah, it's like we said, like, what do we want to give importance to in our lives?
You know, there is something that is very difficult to us to tell ourselves, that we are not as capable as we would like to believe that we are. So if I'm telling you, please take it easy on your mind, I'm kind of basically telling you you're not that strong. That's what I'm telling you. You cannot take all of it. You're not going to handle it. It will break you. And I don't think that we want to accept this idea. It's like, I prefer to believe in an idea that I know how to solve problems and I can overcome everything. I don't want to believe in an idea that I need to take care of what I'm putting inside my head, because my head cannot handle so much. You know, the amount of people that go through what we call burnout today in society. What is burnout? I'm burned out. It's like
Overload.
I'm overloaded. It's like I cannot handle this anymore. It's like, okay, you need to get to hospital in order to understand that it's too much for you. That's like, because basically this is what's happening. And another thing to look at, I met a lot of people post-burnout, basically. So if you look at those people and you talk with them, those are usually the more skillful in the organization. There are more skillful people in the societies. Like, as better you get in the ladder of society, company, structure, business, so on, the higher potential you have to have a heart attack or burnout. It's like, yeah, of course, you're pushing yourself over the limits. All your life, people were clapping to you. How good you are. Look, you're so amazing. Wow, we should promote you. You should get more responsibilities. We should give you more things to do. You know, it's like, and you, yes, and pay me more and give me another laptop to take home with me, so on, so I can also work at home. And, you know, it's like, and basically, no, you're not. You're not really handling it. It's like, if I'll tell you that you have a car and you drive with it every day 5 times more than the average, yeah?
It will break down.
It will break down. You know, it's like, of course, it makes sense. Like, what do you think? Your body is not the same. There is a lifetime for every cell in your body, for every process in you. It's like, so how do you burn your system? That's important.
And it's exactly what you said too, in that the things that are celebrated, it creates a positive reinforcement system. And one of the things that I'm from America, so in a predatory capitalistic system, there's a lot of, yes, you are so celebrated for working very hard, thus making a lot of money. And the addiction to work, which is a real addiction in the culture, and the addiction to making money is so celebrated. It's not going to be the same as you being an alcoholic and drinking at the bar. No one's going to pat you on the back for that, because in the end, they see you as a productive member of society until basically you're forced not to be, until the body shuts down. And there's a social movement that I really like that's interesting, and it's about reclaiming rest in the wet. And there's a beauty to doing. I think the beingness has to come first always, and then you do out of your sense of being. And the rest is saying this, that when I can be fully, it's so obvious also, like watching the way we are when we are relaxed, the way we can engage with life versus when I'm rushed, when my nervous system isn't regulated, when I'm having a conversation with you, but I'm thinking about the 5 things I have to do after you. I'm not going to be giving the sense of presence and devotion to you or to my glass of coffee or to the work in front of me if my mind is geared to do 50 other things in such a short amount of time. And this reclaiming rest is so important, actually, not just for the quality of our mental health, but really actually for the quality of our work. And I felt this in myself of like, wow, when I can just give myself a day to genuinely do nothing. I don't mean like watch TV and call that doing nothing or still stimulating myself, but like literally just lying down and just staring at the clouds and not moving and doing nothing. The sense of coming back home is so strong, and we're just not taught to do these things.
I think one of my sales pitches to people why they should practice presence, technology of observation of your mind, is basically to create more efficient life. So people like it. If I tell you, you're just going to have more peace and harmony in your life. People don't buy it so much. But efficiency at work is totally connected. If you're sitting in front of the computer and you want to do something, but your mind is all over the place, thinking about so many other things, not even related to work, and like your problem in your home, family, I don't know, financial crises that you're dealing with, or the war that is happening on the other side of the world, you're actually not really working. And sometimes it appears from the outside, oh, look, he's working, he's next to the... No, he's not. He's all over the place, he's not present. So I think efficiency is very connected to the same thing. And today it's been very connected also to high-performance people. Let's say athletes or musicians, and every one of them, they will tell you they practice things related to being present in order to improve their skills in tennis, in order to improve their skills in basketball, in skills of playing music and so on. So actually we see that high-performance people at the top level, they're actually practicing being present. So it's like on the way there, we are being trained to basically abuse our system. But once you get to a certain level, you understand you cannot get higher than that. And then you basically need to break down everything that you're thinking about your life, learning how to be present, and then go again and see, whoa, now I'm really performing and I'm actually enjoying it. It's not that difficult anymore. It's playing in a sense.
How would you describe the practice of tuning into presence?
Okay, so I will give maybe my 2 cents on this. The example that I give to everyone all the time, and it's working for everyone, is when you're reading a book, you read the first line, second line, third line. By the time you're in the 4th line, you're not in the book, and your eyes keep running on the page, and you get to the end of the page and you flip and you realize that you have no idea what you're reading. So that works for everyone, this example. Oh, we're driving the car and suddenly we are somewhere and like, oh, how did I get here? I don't even remember driving here, and so on. So we actually don't choose to lose presence. Okay, as much as you will try to control being present, you will see that at a certain point it breaks out and you lose presence. Okay, and this is a phenomena. It's actually You didn't choose to do it. So this is a phenomena. Now, you don't choose to lose presence, and when you are daydreaming, you actually don't know that you're daydreaming. And there is a moment that you wake up from a daydream, and then there is kind of like, where have I been? Or I have no idea what I was reading in the book. So actually, you don't choose to go away, and while you are away, you don't know it. And the only next time that you're actually aware to something is when you come back from this loop. Yeah, I'm not even talking what you did when you were not here, which is a very interesting topic. And if we go down this concept, you'll understand why you really want to be present. Because if you want to solve cancer in your body, be present. What you're doing when you are not here is dealing with very stressful thoughts, which create a lot of hormones in your body, will change your entire ecosystem, and that's what actually create the modern diseases that we all know about. The modern diseases are not actually directly so much food and water and air, it's actually stress in the mind. So anyway, coming back to being present, so this loop, yeah, you actually have zero control on it. In the moment to moment, you don't control it. Now, this loop is happening a lot of times in your day, and the amount of time that you're not here and how many times you go away defines your quality of life or how much you're present. Okay? So let's say today you 80% of the time you're not present. Okay? So all of this is a function of a muscle. So if you train a specific muscle, which we can point into which muscle it is, so what will happen is instead of 80% of the time not being here, you'll be 79%. 78%, and slowly you will increase the quality of your presence. I'm just going to say that the change between 80 to 79 is going to change your entire life perspective. So a lot of people think, I need to move from 80 to 0. No. 80 to 79 will change your entire life. So the change that need to come is not significant. It's very small, but it need to come. And another thing to know about this, if you change from 80 to 79, it's a direction. Which means that once you start to go in this direction, you will slowly continue going in that direction. So it's very important, the beginning, the initiation, the pushing the ball down the hill, yeah? And it will keep rolling because of the momentum.
Mm-hmm. So this falling into the dream state, becoming unconscious, once you notice it, then what is the process of tuning in?
So where is the muscle, yeah? Actually, when you wake up from a daydream, if you can take this a fraction of a second, there is a fraction of a second that you realize this moment and you smile. It's like, and so the smiling does not have to be a physical smile. It can be like this inner smile. It's like, I notice I'm back. And kind of have this acknowledges, it's so good to be here. It's like, I'm smiling, but it's good to be here. Because when I went to the dream, there was a nightmare there. But when I came back, I'm back here. So I'm smiling not because of the nightmare. I'm smiling because I'm back here. Now, what is happening? It's happening on our biological level. It's not intellectual, okay? It's biological level. That when I'm recognizing and acknowledging the moment of coming back to the present moment, my system starts to understand something. You're away, you are back. You're away, you're back. And so slowly my system starts to optimize, to understand that being away is not what I want to. Being present is what I want to. So now my mind is a target. My system, my body, everyone is calibrated into one direction. So slowly what is happening is actually my entire system will detect the disconnect and will wake me up quicker. And also, while this is happening, I will become slowly more aware to what is happening when I'm not here, which is basically subconscious processes. So slowly I become more aware to the subconscious process. I'm observing my subconscious. That will help to optimize my processes. And I will naturally be more present. So I will focus on one point at this key moment, acknowledging when I wake up, I'm back. That's it. So if you practice meditation, you practice yoga, or you're just reading a book, it's the same guidance, whatever you're doing. When you realize that you're back, just acknowledge this moment. And every time you do it, it's like you go to the gym and you lift the weight. So I noticed. After 1,000 times, my hand is very strong. My muscle becomes strong. And so this will basically funnel me to train my muscle to do this. What's really nice about it, that the more you do it, the more you recognize it. The more you recognize it, the more practice you do. So it's like automatic self-improvement process. You just need to initiate it. What we do is we take you to what we call it a strong initiation process, which is basically we take you to the inner walk practice, and we do for 4 days a simple practice, walking back and forth between two walls. And basically this practice itself is working on that. I see it, I see it, I see it. And when you do it for 4 days, as we do it in the practice, we do it, it's happened to you about 7,000-8,000 times. And so it's kind of initiating this thing inside of you. And then the next day, after you finish practicing, you don't come to inner walk anymore, and you sit in the restaurant, and you suddenly waking up to this reality of like, I'm just seeing what my mind is doing all the time. So at the beginning, it's kind of weird. It's like, wow. It's like, at the beginning, people think, oh, it's because of inner walk, my mind is doing all of that. No.
It was always.
It was always there.
You're just noticing now.
Yeah. And then it's not so comfortable in the first few days because like, it's like all new reality. But what is happening, your body, mind, emotional system is getting used to it, and it's become your new normal. And suddenly it's like, there is someone who's talking here. You hear him talking, and you continue doing what you want. It's like being the observer naturally without any effort. This brings you to two qualities. One is optimizing the thinking processes and the problem solution and so on. So there is less and less things to process because you're actually being present in the process and not being away from the process. So optimization is actually happening. And this will create the silent that we talked about at the beginning of our conversation, which is not I'm trying to have silent. It's like there's just less thing to process because I'm more present in the processing that is happening. So slowly something is to change. Now, of course, if you will abuse yourself and constantly just consume more problems inside of you, so of course your mind will continue solving them. But if you take the two sides of one, observing your processes, which will clear them out, from the other side, be mindful what you're taking in. So silence will just come naturally because you clean your house and you don't put dirt inside. So your house is just naturally clean. You don't need to make so much effort to clean it all the time. So that's basically the concept of like the two sides. Don't put dirt inside and learn how to really clean the house and use these two modalities together.
It's interesting to watch too the ways we fall out of presence sometimes. And it was interesting when you said this recognizing when you've fallen off and when you're back on, this inner smile, and it's so good to be here. And I've noticed that what makes me drop out of presence the most is when I have this feeling it's not so good to be here. Let's not be here. And yeah, I feel like many of the times that I truly drop out of presence, I mean, like I am 0% there, I'm totally in my mind, is this feeling of the moment not being enough. And I've started to watch the ways. So for an example of this, I have a conversation with someone, and the conversation, the person is telling me very obvious information that I've heard regurgitated many times. And I'm starting to fall into my dream state because it feels more interesting than what's in front of me. And I'll notice that thoughts, like a lot of thoughts are starting to come. I'll watch the person's face as they speak, and I will try to make the moment interesting for myself to stay awake. So more and more I've been noticing what really puts me into the dream state and how actually the external environment is so beautiful in the process of waking up. One thing I've noticed too a lot of the time is being attuned to the environment around us. So I'll be driving on my scooter and I'll start to have fantasies and dreams and thinking a desire system, all these things coming up. And then a bug will just hit me in the face. And just as I'm driving, a bug will smack me. And it's literally like a slap from my external environment, like wake up. And if we're not fine-tuned sometimes to small little omens of our environment trying to shake us up, then there'll be a really big shakeup. One trend I keep seeing on this island is many of my friends who get into motorbike accidents is because they were really angry. They were thinking and they were really angry, and then they get into an accident. And this thing of the environment trying to wake us up before something bad happens, I've noticed yeah, in America, driving a car, I'll be really in my mind. Someone will beep at me super loudly. It brings me back into the moment. And so still having this spaciousness where we can be attuned to what's going on around us and how actually that is a form of presence. Me watching the ways I can almost drift off into conversation if I don't find it stimulating, but trying to find the connective tissue in the moment, and the fact that even if we think it's the same conversation I've had a million times, it's still a different conversation because now it's happening. It's happening with someone else. It's happening at a different state of mind in the body. Everything's different based on what I ate today, how the weather is. And so fine-tuning the moment into feeling the novelty and the ways in which we try to escape the present moment through our mind, for me especially when it doesn't feel interesting enough.
Yeah, for sure. There is many levels to look at this, and one of them is essentially like what you actually believe about life at the core of you. You know, it's like we walk under an assumption that there is things to get done, there is goals to accomplish, and I don't know, there is a lot of targets, and like also being present is a target. You know, it's like, but if you can at some level slowly start to connect to the fact that you're just living life. It's like, you know, the dog does not think the meaning of life and what is his goal, and the cockroach as well, and the frog is not. And we human beings have developed this phenomena that we think there is something behind what's really happening at the moment. Yeah. So we're constantly not in the moment because we solve so many problems and we need to get somewhere in life. And that idea was ingrained inside of us generations of generations. But like if you just for little bit connect to another side of you, which you're just living life. You're just living life and nothing will come out of this. It's like just one game, you're playing a game. So if I'll tell you, let's play cards. It's like we're not playing for money. We're just playing. We play for 1 hour. After 1 hour, we finish playing. What came out of this? You can easily say nothing. You can easily say we just enjoyed 1 hour. It's nothing. You cannot take anything out of that experience beside the experience itself. Yeah? So it doesn't point anything into the future. Yeah, and life is in a way very similar. It's like we just have told ourselves a story which is not like this. So this is just a beautiful game that we're all playing. It's like I'm a character in your game and you are a character in my game. And so I'm playing this game. And as a player of the game, I would like to enjoy playing the game.
Yeah.
It's like, why should I play the game if I don't enjoy playing it? So, well, many games have challenges. That's part of playing a game. Like if there's not going to be a challenging game, it might be a boring game. So playing a challenging game, fine, but it's still a game. That's the point. It's like, so if I play Monopoly with you now, I will make everything in my power to get more hotels and more cities than you, so I will win the game. That makes sense. It's based on the rules of the game. But as we finish to play the game, we remember it was a game. You know, we're still friends and we can go to eat dinner together. It's like we're not enemies. But in life, we forget it, that it's just a game. So everything that is happening, we take it very seriously and we carry it to the next moment, to the next year, to the next month, you know. So maybe if we can try to understand and to connect to this idea, not from dismissing all the challenges and the problems around us and all of those things, but then we are just characters that are playing a game. And so we have been given a gift to play a game. It's like, it's not a punishment. It seems that life is a punishment sometimes. It's not. You've been given a gift to play the game. But you got lost in the game.
But I think also one of the things that can make us lost is not knowing the rules of the game. And by that, I don't mean like governmental rules or even the social rules, but I mean fundamentals on the nature of reality. And I think one of those fundamentals that we often forget, and why the seriousness comes in forgetting the game, is the fact that, okay, so there's one fundamental I see to life. Lao Tzu says this: the only constant is change. The fact that we are in bodies that are deteriorating, moment passing. Impermanence is a fundamental. And Nietzsche talks about this, and he calls it the theory of tragedy. The fact that we're all actually building sandcastles. And there's some people who look off into the ocean, see the waves coming, and they're so terrified they can't even build. And then there's other people just building sandcastles. And when the wave knocks them down, they're like, how could you do this? And they're sad because they lost what they built. And he says that the person who is deeply involved in this fundamental theory, and it's not a tragedy, is the person who builds the sandcastles with passion, knowing that they're going to tumble down. And you do life anyway. And I really love this theory of tragedy, because if we understand certain fundamentals of the game, we suffer less. And one of those to me has always been, even when we think about animals and we think about species that survive, it's not literally the fittest, it's the ones most adaptable to change. And I see human beings in the same manner. And the moment we stiffen and we don't know how to relax, how to play with life, how to soften with it, where to be fluid, we will suffer. And there seems like certain fundamentals that we just completely dismiss, and it permeates all of reality. We see this even in relationships. If I love you, I don't want to lose you, but nature of life, I will lose you in one way, whether we break up, whether you die, whatever it is. And if our relationship is me clinging because of this feeling of loss versus me just loving you because I love you, it creates a whole different dynamic. And so then how do we relate to life when the foundation of it is change? And how do we place ourselves in this feeling of openness and acceptance to it, rather than the clinging, the desperation, the suffering, the placing ourselves against what is a universal truth?
Yeah.
What do you see as other rules to the game?
So I just want to say, you talked about you love me and then I will die or that, but you love me as me now, and I will change.
Yes.
So I will die as the identity that you know in 1 minute. I'm not here anymore. I'm a new identity. I'm a new identity. So that's actually one of the challenges of relationship, because I'm actually not dying physically, but my identity is dying and being reshaped every minute, which is, again, the concept of the change that you talked on now. Okay, now I understand that relationship is about me learning to love you again and again and again as the changes are coming, and not like, oh, what I'm going to do if he's going to die or something like this is big, yeah, okay? But small, tomorrow you're not the same person.
Yes.
You wake up with a different mood, with a different attitude, with a new hobby, with a new desire, and so on and so on. So that's, I think, one of our biggest challenges. What I really like is that I think that we can take one thing fundamental and keep it very close to us, that there are principles to this reality, like the rules of the game. It's like, what are the rules? Okay, so now you embedded inside of me this curiosity into a journey of learning and exploring and being open-minded to receive the rules, to learn them. And that is a life-changing moment for me. Yeah, it's like just knowing that thing exists. It's like, wow, they actually have a concept. And there are pieces of content that we have discovered from more than 5,000 years ago that describing those principles. So nothing is really new under the sun in the last 5,000 years. They knew it 5,000 years ago. So there is actually those rules, they do make sense. Like, if they wouldn't make sense, they wouldn't be the rules of the game. You know, it's like, so, okay, how can I connect to them and understand them? And by the way, in all traditions, they are finding ways to teach it. Yeah, in Judaism, in Buddhism, in Vedanta, in yoga philosophy, and so on. So we actually just need to tell ourselves one thing: it exists. I want to know more about those things. I've learned so much about computers and physics and cars and flying to the moon and news and this, but all of those rules of all those small things that they are under a bigger set of rules. Why nobody tell me? What are they? You know, it's like, so the principle of change is one very powerful thing. Like if we look at desires, so they can create a lot of suffering. But then if I tell you lose your desires, so where is life? Yeah. So you see, this is a confusing one. But can I have, let's say, passion, desire, intentions to do things in this reality, but not having the attachment and the tension that comes with them? So I have a desire to create a project. So I'm going and I'm creating this project. But I'm not attached to the result or to speed or to consequences. I'm just, I'm being drawn to go to this direction. Okay, so I'm walking in this path towards certain place that I imagined, I manifest, yeah? But I'm not attached to getting there. So I can actually enjoy every step on the journey. And then one day I might discover that I will never get there, or I'm arriving, but I'm still enjoying the moments getting there. So you see, I don't have to live in the attachment to the desires, but I can still have desires. It's like, this is delicate, yeah?
Yes, this is extremely delicate. And because I feel like I used to see desires as something really frightening because I had so many of them. And now more and more I'm seeing that desires are actually kind of just a yearning for life in one way. And I was born from a desire. And so it's exactly as you said, I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong with desires. I think, of course, they can bring extreme frustration if we are attached to getting what we want in the way we want it. And this is the beauty of life, is I've seen that I have a desire, and the world will often give it to me, but it won't be in the way that I expected. And then I would love to make this a little not therapy session, but this is something that I've been facing a lot and thinking about, is this nature of desire. And before we were talking about the body-mind complex, and in the way I relate to my desire system, there seems like there is a lower chakra part of me that has animal needs, which are also human needs, like raw, primal sexuality, fire, this really burning desire. And then there's a higher part of me that wants completely different things. And both of them lead to the same place. But lately, I've been feeling inner tension and inner conflict between different parts of myself. And there seems like this questioning I have within of which desire systems to follow, because there's a part of me that knows that I'm young and that I'm beautiful and that I want sex with many men and I want all these exciting moments. And then there's a higher part of me that knows that I don't need so many experiences anymore. And the thing that I think I was trying to reach with my experiences, I'm often not getting. And this inner tension sometimes that builds also between the animal part that wants what it wants now, so it can't delay gratification. And then the higher part of me that knows the long-term vision that I want for life. And how to make both of those be in a symbiosis rather than against one another. And I know it is a question of consciousness, and I felt the way my desire systems have changed and evolved naturally over time. Certain things that used to really interest me just don't anymore, and it's been a kind of fine-tuning of desires. And even when we're young, we think we'll love playing in the sandbox forever, and as we evolve, we just don't anymore. The nature of desire changes as we mature and we relate back to life. But have you felt these inner conflicts or different parts of yourself that want different things? And how do you find mediation? And how do you find a sense of not compromising and knowing which desire system to follow?
There is few aspects that I can reflect to this. First of all, I do feel that I see life as a game. So I'm not that serious about finding a solution for that. Okay, so that like I wanted to give this angle as well. It's like,
but we can inquire and instead of trying to solve, we can speculate and just see.
Oh, okay.
Because there are these things that exist within me, and I think many people, and it's how to come into a state of. Because if I'm being honest with myself, I do feel tension some days. And it's not just about solving the tension, because I don't solve it. I just kind of sit with it and speculate. But there is still tension. And yeah, so we don't need to solve anything. Yeah, okay. But let's play and then
okay, see. So I'm just saying, yes. As long as we're keeping this idea next to us, it will be very healthy to continue to deeper ideas.
Yes.
Sometimes we go to deeper ideas and we forget it's a game, so we take those ideas very heavily.
Yes.
So I'll give an example. I have craving for sugar.
You have a
Okay.
craving for sugar?
No, I don't, but let's say I have. So this craving is coming because my body wants sugar now, and he's used to get sugar, and he's playing around the concept of getting sugar, and he's a loop. Yeah. And so most of our cravings and desires are working in kind of a way that once you start to give yourself something, you start to want more of that thing.
Like
So
a habit.
So, you eat and you just want to eat more. You drink and you want to drink more. You do drugs and you want to do drugs more. You have sex and you want to have more sex. And so basically our desire system on the most of the physicalities of it is basically, it's a system that's feeding itself. So there is different ways to look at it, but one of the ways is basically practicing for periods of time, not for life, not as a whole journey, basically not touching a certain aspect of our life. So basically, let's say I'm now 3 months not touching sexuality. So like my mind knows it and my body starts to understand it. Okay? So what is really happening is so there is let's say I decided 3 months of this. So I'm passing by a woman. Okay? So yeah, I start to feel something. Okay? But there is a side of me, so this is not relevant because in these 3 months, it's not relevant. So slowly what is happening, my body relaxes into that understanding. And slowly something is relaxing. And so I will see life in a different eyes, slowly. Now there is things that you can avoid for a week or 2 weeks and it's shifting your entire things. And there is things that you need longer periods of time. It's like a rehab. Like do not touch drugs or do not touch alcohol or do not smoke and so on. So I was a smoker. I smoked 3 packs a day. So I smoked a lot. So you understand that if I touch a cigarette, that will start to create a craving for the next cigarette. So how does it go for a smoker? He take 1 cigarette, that's it. And then for 3 days he might not touch even another cigarette. But then he will take another one. And then he will start to take once a day. And then it will be 3 times a day. And then he smokes again 3 packs a day. So it's a process. And now let's see, craving for food, sugars, salts or stuff like this. If I put you on a certain type of fasting, for a week, 10 days, you will see that after a few days, you have 0 craving. And like people, how it's possible that if I don't eat, I want less to eat? Well, because your body doesn't really need all this food. It's just craving for it because he's used to it.
As you're speaking, also something that comes up is reclaiming sensitivity in a way. And especially with when we are purposefully abstaining from something or renouncing, in a way we're coming back to this increase in sensitivity. And all the times I feel that I do, it gets to the point of not want, but this feeling of need is when I know to take distance from things. And exactly as you were talking with this concept of sexual craving, I've done 7 months before of sex fasting. And what I've noticed in my body is this return to sensitivity and this inability to go fully back into the way I was before because I'm just more sensitive. It's the same thing with fasting. When you are taking out all of these toxins, when you're realizing actually what you thought you needed, you don't really need, the body in itself comes back to a heightened state of sensitivity. After all of the times that I've done Vipassana, I cannot go back to the way I was in terms of being on my phone because it doesn't feel good anymore. And I think that's the thing. When I look at my vices in life and my addictions to certain things, the thing that has helped me get past them isn't necessarily dropping them with my mind, because in the beginning is these thoughts like, oh, this isn't good for me, I'm so bad, this isn't good for my holiness, my consciousness, what I want long term. It's this reprimanding voice, and you can know something in your cognition, but it doesn't really do anything. For me, it's all the times of returning back to the state of sensitivity. And yeah, there's so many ways to reset the body mind. Yeah, Vipassana is a great one. Just exactly as you said, feeling the attachment you have to something and taking a step back from it and noticing what life is like without that thing that you thought you needed. And I think the question is how this plays into the way we live our daily lives, and to be in a state of honesty with ourselves. Because yeah, it's interesting to watch the ways that people do break. You renounce something, but then the ways we jump back in is it coming from a there? This is super common. I've seen in Vipassana, like where we're all done, and then everyone they're so excited to talk again, and blah blah blah, blah and being on the phone immediately, and because they actually missed it so much. So actually being honest with ourselves.
I'm considered to be very light and forgiving about the process of what is happening to me in life and to others. So I would say that it's like we're slowly calibrating the system into the center. So let's say the Buddha said the middle path, the middle way. So let's say this is where I want to go, the middle way. And it's not about being here. It's more about like this is the middle. Yeah. So it's around the middle. Okay. Now we actually living life mostly here or here. Yeah. And I think because let's say you can allow yourself to engage with food and to be around food, and then you take a break from food, or you be in the noise and then you go to Vipassana, and you're allowing yourself to experience those things, slowly your system is doing optimization. Yes? And of course, we all go through different speed in the optimization process, and so maybe 10 people go to do the same workshop, and they gain, if I take a picture at the end, they don't look the same at the end, but each one of them gained something for himself in this process of what he participated. So if 10 people go to Vipassana, they're all going through changes and evolution and so on. But we need to understand, we didn't start at the same point, and we're not going to end at the same point, at least not in this lifetime, And there is this journey is very long of, let's call it spiritual evolution or consciousness and so on. So yeah, I think what you should see for yourself is that what you feel that you're doing is actually creating shifts in your life. And even if you go back to do things that you used to do in the past and you don't value so much, okay, how much judgment you have about this? Maybe you have less judgment. If you maintain some level of judgment of yourself, maybe you didn't get the full practice. Because part of the practice is to accept that you're a human being doing a lot of mistakes and wrong things and vices, and I don't see life like this. I just feel I'm living them. And sometimes what I do is not what I would imagine is the best thing to do, and it's okay, I'm just a human being, it's like, so, I don't able to maintain everything perfect all the time. And I think the practices are beautiful to allow us to do this calibration and to find the middle way, and yeah, it's okay. It's a journey, we'll never have all the answers, it's like, it's part of
to embody more in my own life is this feeling of gentleness towards the self that then is also gentleness towards others, and how easy it is when you know the whole contents of your history, your body, your mind, to judge yourself. I feel like my inner critic can be really strong, and there's a light side to that, which would be in a way sometimes this feeling of self-responsibility, and then the dark side of it, which is just criticizing and judging. And I think what you're saying in this gentleness of accepting the humanness and the often complex, messy parts, and learning how to actually enjoy them and be in them without just being swallowed by them. And how you talked about the center, that's kind of, we're trying to remain in the center, but it's kind of shifting. Do you think in life we can have balance living within the extremes?
There is a point in the practices that we do that we need to look. There is one thing that spiritual knowledge causes a lot of self-criticism. So that's a big thing to look at. We strive for spiritual knowledge, and then basically we see all the things that we are not, because we are basically reading about stuff that we don't know how to do, and it seems like this is the target of life. So I guide a lot of people to leave spiritual teaching aside and don't study anymore, but practice things that will help you to feel those things. Yeah, so you will get a true connection to it, not through the intellectual mind, which basically create a lot of self-critique. And so that's one thing to look at. Another thing that will help us to go through this challenge is, so I want sex, I want sex. And then I wake up from this thought and then like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking those thoughts. It's not good thoughts. It's like, I shouldn't, you see, this is the self-critic one. So you see, now, I'm calling it the thoughts loop, because it's basically there is levels, like there is a basic thought, and then you wake up from that, and then you think in the spiritual evolution of our consciousness, so, and there is a moment that you can just smile. Because you see the paradox of the mind, thinking about thinking about thinking about thinking, and constantly there is a better idea why the idea in the layer below is the wrong idea. So let's say that you don't judge yourself so much. So the next thing happened to you in life, you're thinking something about food. And then you're thinking, oh, I shouldn't be thinking about this type of food because it's not healthy for me. And then you're thinking, oh, I shouldn't be criticizing myself for thinking about this food. And it's like, you cannot get out of this. It's like, it's a never-ending game. And Floki told me not to criticize myself. And like, and what I'm really inviting you to do at this moment is to smile. Just from acknowledging of, this is my mind. This is thoughts. And I can see it. And to acknowledge that you have nothing to do about this. You will never be able to fix this process of your mind. The only thing you can do is to acknowledge it. And the moment you acknowledge it and you smile, you are free from it. And this is the gentleness that I'm inviting. So if you ask me how to be gentle with myself, is not telling yourself, do not criticize yourself. And it's not telling yourself, oh, I should love myself more. This is just more content, which is inside every line, there is a lot of criticism. Oh, I love myself. I love myself. Why have to tell myself that I love myself? There's some level of criticism there. And it's like, just stop talking and smile. Just smile, acknowledge the mind for what it is, and that's it. And so this is the gentleness that you bring to the thought process that is essentially criticism and fear. So I think this is it's a very challenging practice, but that's actually when we do inner walk, at a certain point of the journey, I talk about this specific example and then I send them to walk for a few hours. And then what is happening is they go again to the thought law, but there is some small voice that reminds them, Floki said to smile. They start to smile and they start to embody this thing. And slowly they start to see the mind for what it is and not more than what it is, which is just a system that comment about everything and then idea. So I think this is like essentially for me how to bring this gentleness into life. And I also have a very critical mind, yes? It's not like I don't do this. There's a moment that I realize, okay, it doesn't go anywhere. And I smile. And then it's like, oh, it's way easier, yeah? We need to accept that we're not going to solve it. It's a very humbling understanding.
And I think what you're also bringing up is so much of the way we think is for this aspect of some way of control, whether it's control of self or control of the environment. And this smiling to the self, this acknowledging is the state in a way of trust. Yeah, of allowing and therefore trusting because you're allowing it. And so to just let things be and not have this iron fist of trying to control. And I think that's a lot of what you were saying, this having a thought, then having a thought about the thought, judging the thought and going into this loop is this aspect of trying to control your own mind with your mind. When people say words like control and surrender, what do you see it play out in the fundamentals and the foundations of the mind?
The concept of control is one of the deep elements that we work with. I will touch it in two levels. One, you said the word trust. So I want to say something. A lot of people, I trust the universe, I trust the process. I don't need you to trust all of this. It's mumbo jumbo, it's not important. I need you to trust only one thing, and it's something that you can digest and intellectually accept. You now have way more experience and understanding about life than you 1 hour ago, you a year ago. Yeah? Because you're constantly in a process of evolution. Okay. So you now have less knowledge, information, and skills than you 1 hour from now, you a year from now. So basically, you in the future is for sure more skillful than you now. That's just the facts of life. And what I want you is to trust this. that you have nothing to do about your future, or to fix about your future, or to try to control about your future, because you in the future will be there. And you in the future have more skills than you now. So why you need to think for you in the future? Why you need to worry for you in the future? So I'm actually asking to trust you. I want you to trust only you. And when you trust you, you're basically saying, oh, whatever will happen 1 hour from now, I will be there. I have in the future has more skills than me now. So why should I worry? Huh? So it doesn't mean that I don't do things in order to prepare my life to the future. That's not about this. It's the constant worry that we carry and control and challenge. And so trust is a very important word, but take it to the right place. You're trusting yourself because you're going to be there. And that's the only thing you need, you know? It's like, so this is one element of it. The other thing about control and fear and understanding that basically control is our method to deal with fear. And then we talk about releasing control or surrendering. You know, every time you try to release control, it means that you're trying to do something. Trying to do something is controlling the situation. So you cannot even try to release control. It's a function that does not exist in reality. It's like, it's a paradox. It's like, so I'm telling you release control and I'm basically bullshitting you. Like it's something you cannot do. You cannot try to release control. So releasing control is a phenomena that is rising from acknowledging the control. So it's not I'm releasing the control, I'm seeing the control, and as I see the control, I smile and acknowledge that I've seen it. As the method of, by doing this enough times, the control will just be loosened up. And so you're not releasing control, it's a function you cannot do. You're not surrendering, it's not a function you can do. You're acknowledging the fear and the control, and that automatically drops you to a relaxation state through the practices. So maybe the first day that you'll see control, you'll actually, you will acknowledge it, but there is going to be another fear because you see it, okay? And then the next day you come and you see it again, and slowly your mind sees it, just for what it is. And that's it. And there is no need to do anything about it. And slowly it comes less and less and less and less. So you know, we tell people to walk back and forth in inner walk. And you know, they are thinking if to turn right or left when they make the U-turn, you know, it's like, that's control, you know, it's like we do it on a basic, or they walk and they get to the wall and you need to turn around and you see they're really making sure that the last step is the closest to the wall as possible. It's like, that's another layer of control. I need to turn around at the end, you know, it's like, it's very subtle things. And then when I point them to see this, it's like, you know, slowly they start to walk more freely. So slowly they start to think more freely. They start to take their mind less serious. You know, so the releasing the control is not something that you do by any attempt of doing it. The only thing that I recommend you is become aware to this concept. Like you said, the rules of life. Become aware to them, aware to this existence, and slowly they will come into you. So you become aware to the control, and slowly there is less control inside of you. If you're feeling that you're becoming over-controlling, like you've been in a good place and you're losing it, yeah, go back to practices that allows you to be with it. Inner walk is an amazing modality to do this. To become aware to processes, basically, which control is one of them. It's inner walk is a 4 days journey when we do it in the context of the workshop, and by default I dedicate the third day to this teaching, and we give a whole teaching around it, and we dedicate a practice to this thing. I think it's one of the core elements on the path of freedom and liberation.
So it seems like a lot of the time we are governed by either our fears or our desires, and they manifest in a variety of ways. What do you think, besides using control, are other mechanisms we use to deal with the fear? And how would you define fear and the way we relate to it in everyday life?
Okay, so when we talk about fear, we label it in many different types of fear. But essentially there is an identity that I've created for myself. And my fear is basically, I'm afraid for the life of this identity. So it's not even your physical body. Yeah? It's something more airy. Yeah? Sometimes I like to give this example. If you were a bodyguard of a prime minister, yeah? So you're actually being trained to jump and get a bullet for him. Okay? So now you will see that those people actually, they're going to do it. And they're going to do it with conscious and open mind, and they're willing to jump and get a bullet for this person. So they're actually willing to die. Yeah? But if, let's say, they are thinking that they got COVID, they might be freaking out. How is it possible? If, like, what's the risk of COVID? Dying? They were willing to jump and get a bullet. What's the problem of dying for them? They're supposed to be no having fear of death, but it's not a fear of death as a physical death. If I'm going to jump and get a bullet, it serves the purpose of my identity, and there is no problem for me to die in that way. But if I'm going to die just from some COVID, no, that's I cannot take, and I'm afraid of dying like this. You know, so we can see it's more about the process of the identity that I have. So as you go in your life and you become aware to the identity that you have, what is your identity? What is your beliefs? What is your behaviors? What is the things that you actually believe this is you? And so if you believe this is you, it means you are protecting it. Automatically, not because you want, because this is how your biology works. So when you start to become to your identity, that's the first layer of dropping the identity. Because you cannot drop something that you don't know that you're holding. So you become self-aware. As you become self-aware, you start to understand why I'm holding this in my hand, this concept, this idea. It's like, I'm Jewish and there is only one God and all the rest of the religions have to die. And okay, this is my identity. This is what I believe in. So maybe I become aware to this and I start to realize certain things. Maybe I understand that I can be a Jew, but I don't need that the rest of the religions will die, or I don't know what. Maybe it's not, this is what it's about. Or maybe I'm not that identified with that on a level that I need to kill other people for that, or whatever concept I'm holding in my hand. So as I become more aware to my identity, maybe there is a potential for me to drop parts of my identity. If I drop parts of my identity, I have nothing to be afraid of, because it's not part of me anymore. I don't need to protect it. So you can see that a lot of your fears are basically ingrained in the idea that you are protecting something. So we can take some very challenging ones, like the mother identity. Okay, so you're so identified with the fact that you're a mother and this is your kids and you need to protect them, and they are basically symbolizing your identity as a mother. So the moment you become a mother, you have purchased a new identity in life. By the way, you maybe dropped another 10. Yeah? As this moment comes, like you throw away all your past identities and now you become the mother identity, you know, it's like very strong and very protected. And it's actually, well, it was designed by nature, yeah? The mother needs to protect her kids. But because we are living in such an intellectual reality, we don't really take it as simply as like, they need to have food and shelter, and that's it. No. It's important what clothes they wear, how they look, what they speak, what they do, what toys they play, how much they sit in front of the phone, what kind of hobbies they have, and like you are so overprotective about their life that basically you are not letting them to live. You know, it's like you basically took over their life as a mother. And so, you know, maybe if you start to realize, wait, my identity as mother is a little bit more basic. It doesn't need to be so broad. Like, they can live their life, they can choose their decisions, they can make their mistakes. As I had mistakes in my life, they need to make mistakes in order to grow. So you start to understand where your identity ends and your kid's identity starts. And it's not in the same place. There is a separation, as much as we're all one. They have their life and I have my life. So you're basically shifting your perception about your identity. And by doing this, there is less fears, so there is less anxiety. And you know, when you talk with parents, you see there is anxiety inside of them about what happens with their kids. And you're already 40 years old and your parents still don't sleep good at night. You know, it's like, when they gonna start to understand that I have my own life, you know, like I'm okay, you know, it's like, let me live my life. And so basically I think one way to release fears is becoming aware to the identity that we are actually living the fear of. So if it's my mother identity, my survival worker identity, I need to work, make money in order to have food. But wait, I know people that have $4 million in their bank account and they are afraid for their financial future, like terrified. And I know people that have nothing in their bank and then are not worried about this. So it's like, what's really going on here? Oh, I'm so identified with something, basically. Now, to say something is that you don't have one identity, you have many identities. It might sound like you have a split personality, but literally inside of you there is different identities. They all been created in different parts of your life. The moment they were created, they were really a necessity. Every condition that you have, that you lived through, was a necessity at some point in your life. So it's not like I'm trying to kill those conditions or identities. It's not about that. I'm becoming aware to them and to the relevant place of my life. So the perfectionist one, the competitive one. Wait, I have nobody to compete in my life. Why everything is a competition for me? Ah, I grew up in an environment that everything was valued by who is first and who is last, and that's created the competition identity that I have, the competitor identity. So okay, but wait, like it's not relevant. I'm playing with my kids now. I'm just having a good time with you. Like, what is all this competition in my head? It's like, oh, so I'm becoming aware to that, and then like suddenly there is less stress, less tension, less fear, and so on. So it's again becoming aware to what's going on, and we're coming back to the same fundamental things. Be present and see what's going on. From your fears.
And it's exactly as you said too. Another word that comes up is based on our identities, how we get into various roles and how the roles are actually in accordance with one another. And it's a social phenomena as well, but exactly how that changes as well. And it's based on what you were saying, what you feel you need at a certain specific time in your life. And a lot of the time that identity is then dropped and a new one is picked up in accordance with what you feel you need in the present moment. But I think there naturally in my own life, I feel there's less suffering, very much so when there's less solidifying around an identity. My main profession is writing. And I write every day. But on the days, I remember actually, no, it wasn't just a few days. There was like a week or 2 weeks at a time, I was in such a creative block that it felt like my whole identity, what I created, my sense of worth, of money around, was fundamentally breaking. Like, am I even a writer if I'm not able to write? And how painful that is for many people. Yeah, when you've created a whole set of ideas around who you think you are, but allowing the vastness of who you are to exactly be that, to be the multiplicity of self rather than just one thing. And I think that's why you brought up the mother thing. I think that's why I've seen a lot of relationships get honestly ruined when people have kids and there's so much control over their role as parents and they forget about the role they had before, which was lovers. And how these, when we create so many preconditions and so much the way we think the role has to be, and how that also creates suffering, and to allow this spaciousness of self, and also the fact that the roles are, as you said, they're changing in accordance with what we feel we need at the time, and to allow the spaciousness and to allow those changes.
Also, there is a small game that is happening there, that your identities are fighting with each other. So you have two different identities that have different needs, so-called in the same moment. And they are basically, this is why you sit in front of the door and you don't know what to choose, because some parts of you need door number one and some parts of you need door number two, and you get stuck with no door, just looking at them and like being confused, which I choose. And basically this is the complexity of indecisiveness, which is basically coming between, like if I take a group of 10 people and you all need to agree what we are doing today. Okay, that's going to be challenging, yeah? But if one of them will take leadership and say, I want to go there and this is what I want to do and you follow me, it's like, oh, there is a good chance we're actually going to do something today. So basically there is a competition between your identities and there is 10 of them. And so like, you find yourself with a lot of doubts and indecisiveness, which is, if you look at this is one of the most common mental challenges or behaviors that we have in the modern era, like too many options and too many things my identity needs, and like okay, and I cannot know what to do, and so too many options, too many identities. What should I do in life? And that's one of the things that we're going back to what you said before, simplicity. So more simplicity, less options, less identities arguing, and it's like okay, I can actually do something. And that's really connecting to what you said, like, I don't know, a while back in the conversation, that is basically one of the solutions to all of this life reality, you know?
And I think it comes from really the thing of creating a life around simplicity, whether it's in thoughts or materially, is the fact that it comes from not needing so much from life. And then that in itself will create a sense of presence. When you feel that you're not demanding things from a person, from yourself, then you can just fully be in a situation without creating mental constructs around how it should be, which is sucking us out of the moment. And so, yeah, this is a nice return in the conversation for this simplicity of the self, simplicity of thought, simplicity of the way we interact with life, and how that allows it to be actually to have more possibility in a way.
You said something that brought me to a thought that a friend shared with me a while back. Asked him, how are you? And he said, I'm satisfied. I'm like, well, this is a different answer. What is satisfied? So it got me thinking a little bit. What is satisfied? So satisfied is someone who have what he wants. Okay? So let's say if what you want is here and what you have is here, so you're not satisfied. If what you want is here and what you have is here, you're satisfied. So basically satisfied is someone who have what he wants. Yeah? Okay. Now, in order to be, the next thing is to look at how does it feel to be satisfied. If you dive into this, like, oh, it feels just comfortable. It's not super excited, not low. It's just comfortable, peaceful, nice, cool. I'm satisfied. It's like very nice place to be. Okay, so if I want to be satisfied, I have two options. One is if this is what I want and this is what I have, I need to work in order to get what I want. And then I will be satisfied. The other option, if I want less, and this is what I have, so I'm already satisfied. So it's either you lowering what you want, basically wanting less, as you said, or working hard to get what you want. Now, I'm not going to tell you what is the right answer. You have to do it yourself. But if you just understand what is the meaning of satisfied, and you put it inside and you don't forget it, so the next time you're not satisfied, just ask yourself what you not do in order to get what you want, or what you can drop in order to be satisfied. Because you may be wanting too many things. And just understanding this is basically understanding, well, satisfied is obviously only inside of me. I'm not dependent on you to be satisfied. If I want you to give me food and you don't give me food, so I'm not satisfied, it's like, maybe I just need to drop the wanting of you giving me food, and then everything will be just fine. And like, why I actually want you to give me food? It's like, why I'm creating all of this idea? Because we are married, so she need to give me food. It's like, really? Like, what is this? And so basically being satisfied is quite simple.
In a way, I think it's a refinement. We talked about desire before. I think it's a refinement of desire. And this is why I really love Epicurus, his philosophy, which is that desires, when they're natural and necessary, we can reach a state of satisfaction in life. And so say I'm hungry. If I want a steak and wine and all these things to satisfy my hunger and I'm not getting it, I will probably suffer. But if I just want something that's healthy, that's right there in my garden, I'm not suffering as much. And so how we can refine things to what is natural in life and what is necessary, and how it fluctuates depending on where we are in our consciousness and what we see as what we need. And I think a lot of the social myths we've been handed is the fact that more is better. And so we're always on this hedonic treadmill of trying to reach what we think will bring us satisfaction. And it's like a small dopamine rush of pleasure. And then within like 2-3 hours, we're dissatisfied again. And so it really is this coming back into what is it that we actually genuinely want from life? Not really what everyone has told us we want, but what is the truest part of us saying? And yeah, I think this is a really beautiful adventure.
If you also understand that it's very confusing to find the answer for that, and one of the ways to really get to this place is to basically take everything away, be with nothing, stay with it for a little bit, and then ask again what I really want. Because in the state of having stuff, it's very difficult to know what you really want. But let's say you go for 10 days Vipassana, when you finish the 10 days, it's like you're so raw and basic. It's like you can really start to see what's like, I need to speak with someone that I love.
Yeah,
okay,
what matters.
yes,
This feeling
okay.
of coming back to what matters. I have a pretty extreme example of this, but it's a beautiful one. My friend made a documentary in Italy, and it was many of refugees coming on boats and entering from, I'm pretty sure it was Tunisia. And they came, and she said, like, the way you think about it is that all of them would be frazzled, all of them would be fighting for resources, that they would just be in a really low state. And she said it surprised her, the look on the women's faces, how stoic they were. And when she did interviews with them, who you're talking about when you come from Vipassana in the state of being raw again, when you didn't have so much stimulation, when you had pretty much nothing, for them, after their village gets burned down, after their brother has been shot, after everything has been stripped away from them, they only want love. She's the only thing I want is peace and love. And I am willing to, you'd think that after so much trauma, it would be almost an opposite response of needing so much to feel comfortable again. All I want is peace. And the look on the women's faces of just being okay living in this foreign country in a tent and having nothing, because all I want is love and all I want is peace. And it sounds like so basic, but when we come back, every single thing that we're grabbing for in a way is a call back to love, or of wanting to receive love. And we've touched this, whether we're in meditation or having an out-of-body experience in psychedelics or having sex, everything is to come back to that feeling that we're not separated. And I think this is why many people become attached in a way to spiritual practices, is this thing of feeling the oneness again. And that return back home is feeling so strong. And if we can make each moment, allow each moment to be just what it is, and that, this, for me, it really is this state of not needing so much. And like, what is the most important thing in my life? And how can I shape my life around this state of being that I want, which is love, which is the fact that everything we're interacting in some way is a relationship. From the way in which I eat food, to the way I speak to you, to the way I walk on land, everything that we're forming is interrelated. It is a relationship. And when we do things like Vipassana or inner walk, reclaiming the rest, reclaiming the sensitivity, is in a way all about this way of relating back to the world at large. And it's a beautiful thing.
Nice.
I want to thank you for coming today, and also because of the experiences I've had through the practice that you've created. At Inner Walk, it was 3 years ago. I went 3 times in a span of 1 year. And the teachings, which are one fundamental, the state of allowing, I think a lot of the things I was engaged in before was highly observing, but then labeling the thoughts and going really into cognition. And your practice of just walking for 4 hours back and forth, allowing, but just this noticing, and noticing when you wake back up, and how something, we talk about simplicity, how simple this practice is, and yet how deeply profound in the way it's touched so many people's lives, like hundreds on this island. And so the work you're doing is so important and beautiful. And yeah, thank you for that.
And nothing is important.
It's so important in its unimportance.
Yes. We have this joke when my teacher, the monk who created the practice, we were people walking, and at some point there's like silent. Everybody's walking, and the field is so like deep inside, and then he's like saying very important, and it's like just shout, because everyone is like in his head, it's like, and he's basically telling them it's very important what you're doing now, it's like, and everybody wakes up suddenly from their processes, and they realize, it's like, it's such a joke. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for spreading the love in the world.
Yes.
Yeah.